Hello! Alright, I've been trying vigorously to catch up on my reading in December. Alright, the first one, gonna get this out of the way quickly, Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas. The last video I made was a video talking about this book, so I'll just link to that. It's titled Problematic Tropes in Empire of Storms, but it was also kind of an overall review. Mainly it's a very negative review, so if you don't want to hear that, don't watch it. Sarah J Maas romanticizes problematic relationships. She romanticizes controlling, manipulative men, or males, or whatever you want to call them. And even if they're supposed to be portrayed as fey and they're supposed to be like animalistic and whatever, still they're men. I have read like 5 of her books now, and I hashtag regrets, because I mean, this book just took a downhill plunge. I draw the line at romanticizing unhealthy relationships. This is like a very fantasy-filled video. Like, most of the books I read recently are fantasy, and I'm definitely taking like a good break from fantasy now. YA fantasy particularly. Next, I'm going to talk about all 3 books in the series. Although I didn't read them in this order, I read one of them after Empire of Storms, then I read a few more books, and then I read the other 2. But I'll talk about them all at once, because why not? So I read the first 3 books in the Fallen Kingdom series by Morgan Rhodes. Just shortly after I started the first one, I'm like, oh, I'm going to love this. So I went and picked up the next 2 right away before I even finished this. And upon finishing it, I was like, it wasn't as good as promised in the beginning. I've heard a lot of people say it's like a YA Game of Thrones, and actually I have to agree. The very grayness of the characters, how none of them are really good or really bad, it's like a total mix, although actually a lot of them are really bad, but there's no, like, it's just a mess. And there's the cutthroatness and the deaths and this whole world and all of the things going on in it. I mean, it does focus around like magic, whereas Game of Thrones doesn't really. It just has elements of magic in it, but just the way that the story is constructed and the characters in it do remind me of Game of Thrones somewhat. Rebel Spring, I enjoyed this the least. I think out of the 3 that I've read so far, it just was mad. I don't even remember what happened in this book. That's the thing when I binge books, then they all just kind of become one big clump, and I don't remember what happened individually in each of them. There are these weird relationships that are really pushed, and there are all these weird love triangles, and it's like all of the characters are kind of involved in this big circle. It's like a love circle, and so there's one main character is in a love triangle with these 2 main characters, and then one of them is married to this person but is in love with this person, or has kissed these 3 people, and then another person has slept with these 2 people, and then one of them, it just goes on and on to infinity, and it's like, whew, it's crazy. Like, these kids, they need to calm down. There like 16-year-old. Gathering of Darkness, which is the 3rd one, and this one I think I might have enjoyed the most out of the 3. It's really getting exciting. There are just blindsiding things happening left and right. And it's really exciting, even though I don't care about any of the characters really. I haven't been upset about a death since the first book. Next, I read Mosquitoland by David Arnold. This is a debut novel from David Arnold last year. This book follows a girl as she travels from Mississippi to Ohio to see her sick mother, because she overhears her father, stepmother, and principal talking about her mother being sick and how they're keeping it a secret from her and not telling her. So she rushes home, steals a can of money from her stepmother's secret stash, and gets on a Greyhound bus and heads to Ohio. And basically this whole journey that she goes on, the people she meets, the thoughts she has, the things she witnesses and experiences, and her voice is really unique and really, I don't know, really powerful, but she's kind of a problematic character. She does suffer from some type of mental illness of some, I'm not sure if it's anxiety or what, because I don't think it's ever really touched on. Is it? I might have just forgotten. The character with Down syndrome in this book is, I believe Mim, there's a conversation between her and another character where they call him their pet, and they think of him as, like, their pet, this character with Down syndrome, which is just not right. I've seen it in a few books where characters with Down syndrome are portrayed as being cold or, dumb or distant, and it's just so dehumanizing to people with Down syndrome. And there's also a thing with her Cherokee heritage where I've seen people comment about how she exploits that in a way. She's like 1/14 or 16th Cherokee or something, and she exploits that, and she pretends that she's more than she is, and she puts on like lipstick all over her face, which is what she calls her war paint, and it's a little So I don't know really how I feel about this book. Everything besides those two things I was head over heels in love with. I adored it so much, and I just wish he wouldn't have done that. It's Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Here is an example, in my humble opinion, of an author who just does it all right. Leigh is my queen. I'm so happy. This book is so diverse and it's beautiful. There are people of color. There are 2 gay main characters. There's a character with a disability. There's also a character battling like drug addiction. Also 2 characters have like PTSD. I see it all over, people insisting that you don't need diversity in fantasy. It's fantasy. People can create the world they want, blah blah blah. Don't bring it up. Like, why are you pointing it out? Leave people to write their own world. So this huge blow up on Twitter recently, it really got me thinking and appreciating Leigh Bardugo even more, because besides the fact that she writes incredible characters who are flawed, but you still sympathize with them, you still like them, you can still see all sides of them, and they have incredible relationships, and they're funny, and they're smart, and they're daring. Well, they're also so diverse. It's not like pointing out, this is a gay character, this character has a disability. It's not like pointing fingers all the time, it's just there. And she does such a good job of just laying it into the story, just weaving it in. It made me bawl my eyes out at the end. First book this year that really made me ugly cry. Head over heels for Leigh Bardugo. I'm gonna read everything she writes. I'm so happy that she exists. Honestly, besides the fact that I love the story so much, if you're looking for diversity, it's here in folds. Going in a totally different note from YA fantasy, we have here My Life on the Road by Gloria Steinem. I picked this book up a while ago, expecting it to be like, My Life on the Road. You know, I thought, travel memoir. I didn't know anything about Gloria Steinem or her life. Within a chapter or 2, I knew that's not what this was, but I was so captivated anyway. Gloria Steinem is a writer, an activist, I'm gonna read off this, an organizer, an inspiring leader. I mean, she was like at the head of the feminist movement in the 70s and 80s. And I've seen a couple of negative reviews about this book saying, Gloria Steinem insinuates that if you don't support Hillary Clinton, then you're not a feminist. And never in this book did I get that from her. I thought she wrote from a very unbiased perspective. Like, she seemed like she was, even though you knew what side of the argument she was on, she seemed like she was standing firmly in the middle ground when she wrote about all of these topics. And so I thought she did that brilliantly, which I guess journalist, you know, she knows what she's doing. And I don't read in books too often, but sometimes you just have to. I dog-eared some pages, I highlighted, this book was brilliant. This is like a memoir about history and feminism and the war against racism and all these things. It's just a feminist treasure trove, honestly. I'm just gonna read some passages that I highlighted because I think they're incredible. Just to give you a little taste of this book, okay? Only after I saw women who were attracted to distant, condescending, even violent men did I begin to understand that having a distant, condescending, and even violent father could make those qualities seem inevitable, even feel like home. She always had a loving father and had a good relationship with him and with a lot of the men in her life, and so she never understood why someone would be attracted to a terrible person, basically, or why someone would stay with someone who was like that. And having a history of relationships gone awry and abusive relationships in my family, I see it, but I can totally understand where she's coming from not being able to like see it with a naked eye because she didn't know that. She didn't grow up with that. I was so excited about this book. I just like was talking about it all the time. Another passage, okay. I was angry because young men in politics were treated like rising stars, but young women were treated like, well, young women. So friggin' true. Like, she campaigned a lot for people running for president things. She campaigned a lot for Hillary Clinton, when she was running against Obama in 2008. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Hillary Clinton. Obviously, she's 100% better, option than Trump. And he's just a disgusting excuse for a human being. Like, is he even human? But I think I read this at the perfect time with, you know, the election and everything. Even though I'm from Canada, not the US, I'm neighbors, and if my neighbor's house is on fire, I'm gonna get a little worried about it too, even if it's not my house, you know? while she was campaigning for Hillary in 2008. In the presidential election of 2008, a banner year for surrealism in everyday life, right-wing talk show host Rush Limbaugh opposes the Democratic candidacy of Hillary Clinton. He accuses her of wearing pantsuits to conceal bad legs. Instead, he supports Sarah Palin as the Republican vice presidential candidate because she wears skirts to reveal good legs. This is an actual quote from an actual talk show host in 2008, Rush Limbaugh. This is the kind of thing women deal with, and people say that we don't need feminism. People say this is all, oppression to women is all in our heads. I see young women like myself, my age, on Facebook, things that almost cause me to unfriend them on Facebook, but then I'm like, well, I don't want to be in an echo chamber. I really want to know what people are thinking, but still, it drives me crazy when I see young, like 18, 19, 20-year-old women who are like, I'm not a feminist because feminists hate men, feminists are selfish, feminists only care about themselves and their own agendas. Like, it's proof, if you read this dang book. Feminists were fighting not only for equal rights for women, or at least for rights for women, they were also fighting for equality for all people of color. They were fighting for people with disabilities. And, like, feminists are not selfish. Feminists want equality. They want rights for everyone. Feminists aren't saying all men are bad. Feminists are just saying all men should not be making decisions for everyone, especially all white, straight men. Like, that's not a very good demographic of representation, really. This book was like brain food for me. I learned so much. It was the thing that I never knew I was missing, and I'm just so ready to read more books like this. It does have little bits of memoir thrown in there of her life and how it ties in, because obviously it's all kind of following her life, but it's not focusing on her. It's focusing on all the people around her. And I learned so much about history, like recent US history too, because I don't know a lot about US history because I'm Canadian. And, I mean, it was great. Be open-minded and just learn, honestly. All we can do is learn and be our best selves, really. I mean, I sound like a hippie, but true. Totally switching lanes once again. Last book I'm going to talk about is A Throne of Fire by Rick Riordan. My reading is all over the place. Can you see when I go to the bookstore and I buy, like, I'll buy books like this together, and people are like, wow, colorful selection. This is the second book in the Kane Chronicles. This is a trilogy about Egyptian mythology from Rick Riordan, and I read the first one a long time ago. I didn't love it, but I've had this book sitting on my shelf for years, and I thought I should probably get to that. So I listened to the audiobook, actually, because I needed an audiobook to listen to while I was doing things, and I really enjoyed it. The character development's great. Rick also is really good at just writing diversely. I mean, he doesn't do it a ton, but it's there. And it's pretty much almost for a long time it's been there in his books. And it's something I really appreciate. It's not like a big dramatic thing. He writes middle grade with gay characters and with with characters of all races. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than the first one, I think. I mean, I read the first one a long time ago, so it's hard to compare. But yeah, it was good. So hopefully I'll read the third one, in the next not too distant future, not like in a few years, like I did with the other one. But anyway, that's all from me. Let's discuss these books in the comments if you've read them, if you want to read them. Thank you for watching, and I will be back soon. Bye.